Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in. You sent us some really interesting stuff about AI, and it seems like you're especially interested in this whole idea of like individual sovereignty.
Yeah.
In a world where tech is, well, advancing so rapidly,
Yeah.
you've got articles on NVIDIA, Tesla's, those robot plans,
Oh, right.
and then those deeper dives into like AI abundance, or
Right.
maybe not.
The potential and the risks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot to unpack, and I think that's where you come in. I mean, you always do a great job of like connecting the dots and just seeing that big picture.
Well, I think what's fascinating about what you've sent is it really highlights not just the technology itself, but, the choices that we have and how we engage with it.
Oh, I see.
And that's where this idea of sovereignty, gets really interesting, especially as AI becomes more and more integrated into our lives.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, right now, NVIDIA
hmm
is the name in AI hardware.
Oh,
Like
absolutely.
88% market share. Can you believe that?
It's incredible.
And they're projected to benefit hugely from the, trillions of dollars expected to be spent on AI infrastructure.
Trillions, yeah. It's almost like they're holding all the cards in this whole AI game. And you think about it, from an investor's perspective, their position is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it also makes you wonder, like, is it wise to put all your eggs in one basket?
That's a good point.
Or does this level of dominance, does it actually make diversifying into competitors a smarter move?
Yeah, like they're the big player now, but things change so fast,
Right.
especially in tech.
Right, exactly.
And speaking of other players, you know, your interest in Tesla isn't just about the cars, it's about their in-house AI development.
Yeah, very much so.
Stuff like the Dojo supercomputer and their own AI chips.
Yeah, yeah, they're building their own solutions.
It's interesting that they're not just relying on NVIDIA.
Yeah, and that speaks to their ambition, especially with that whole Optimus project. I mean, they're not just aiming for self-driving cars. They want robots,
Yep.
potentially outnumbering humans,
Right.
doing
Oh
everything.
yeah, like household chores, maybe even colonizing Mars, like Elon keeps talking about.
Right, exactly. Elon's vision, for sure.
The Optimus thing is mind-blowing. I mean, even if it's still kind of sci-fi, the potential is just huge.
Yeah,
And it kind of feeds into this bigger conversation about AI's potential in general.
yeah.
Whether it leads to this age of abundance that everyone's talking about, or,
Right.
well, some experts are saying like a 20% chance of negative outcomes, even existential threats.
Yeah.
Those aren't exactly small numbers.
No, they're not. And I think that's where your focus on the sovereignty thing becomes even more crucial. Because it's not just about, is AI good or is it bad? It's really about how these developments are going to impact individual choice. Like what does it even mean to be sovereign in a world that's being shaped by these incredibly powerful technologies?
Right, right. That's the question that keeps coming up for me in all of this. Like,
Mm.
okay, let's say AI does lead to this age of
Okay.
abundance.
Yeah.
Like goods and services become basically free because it's AI and robots doing all the work,
Yeah.
you know, which sounds great at first, but
But then what?
yeah, exactly. Like what happens
What
then?
happens to our individual agency?
Yeah.
If all of our basic needs are met, but our choices are being, kind of subtly shaped by algorithms that we don't even really understand,
Hmm.
is that real freedom? Or is it just like, are we trading one form of limitation for another?
Whoa. Yeah, that's a good question. Like, are we actually becoming more free or less free in that kind of world?
Yeah, it really is. And it kind of brings us back to like this idea of individual sovereignty, not just in, some hypothetical AI-driven utopia, but like right here, right now. Because the truth is, AI is already kind of influencing our choices in ways that we may not even realize.
Oh, totally. I mean, just think about like algorithms and how they shape what we see on social media, how they target us with ads. It's kind of unsettling when you think about it, how much is going on behind the scenes.
It is, yeah. But as we talked about before, awareness is like that first step toward, reclaiming our agency. It's like shining a light into those dark corners, like understanding the mechanisms at play.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. But like, how do we even, how do we start building that awareness? Where do we even begin?
Well, I think a good starting point is, just cultivating a healthy skepticism.
Okay.
Do you remember like those loud voices that we were talking about? The ones that are kind of pushing a certain narrative,
Oh, yeah.
whether it's, AI's potential or, its risks.
Yeah, yeah.
You think you can just accept what they're saying at face value.
So like, not just taking everything we hear or read about AI as like the gospel truth.
Exactly, exactly. Think of it as like developing your own personal BS detector.
Okay, I like that.
Like, you mentioned an article about Elon Musk's predictions for AI. Ask yourself, what's his motivation for even saying those things? What's the context there? And does the evidence, like, actually back up his claims?
That's a really good point. It's easy to get caught up in all the hype, especially when you have someone like Elon Musk, making these big pronouncements.
Right.
But it's important to like step back and really, critically evaluate what's being said, who's saying it, and why.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that critical thinking applies not just to AI, but to all information, right? I mean, especially in this digital age, because misinformation and manipulation, they've been around for a long time.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. But it does feel like AI is kind of amplifying those problems in a way,
It is.
like making it even harder to know what to believe.
It makes it harder to sift through all the noise and figure out what's real. Yeah.
Yeah.
But here's the thing, AI can also be used to combat it.
Oh, really? Wait, how so?
Yeah, there are actually researchers who are developing AI algorithms that can detect deepfakes, identify fake news sites, and even like trace the origins of that viral content.
Bro.
It's like a digital arms race,
Yeah.
with AI being used on both sides of this like battle for the truth.
That's fascinating. It's like AI can deceive us and it can also help us see through the deception.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's why cultivating that discerning eye, that ability to, critically evaluate information, that's so essential these days. It's a skill that will serve you well no matter what AI throws our way.
Okay, so we've got like skepticism, being mindful of the sources and the motivations behind the information we're consuming.
Yeah.
What else? What else can we do to kind of navigate this whole landscape with more awareness?
Well, I think the next step is really just being mindful of your information diet. It's
Mhm.
like what we eat, right? Too much junk food and you're going to feel sluggish, unhealthy.
Okay.
Same goes for the information we're consuming.
So it's not just like questioning the validity of the information itself, but also like being more selective about what we're even exposing ourselves to in the first place.
Precisely. It's about like consciously curating your information intake. Ask yourself, what sources do I actually trust? What perspectives am I missing? Am I seeking out information that challenges my assumptions? Or am I just like reinforcing what I already believe?
That's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially with social media.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught in those filter bubbles where you're only seeing stuff that confirms your existing views.
It is. And those filter bubbles, they're often like reinforced by those AI algorithms that are tracking, your every click, your every share.
Right.
They learn what you engage with, and then they just feed you more of the same, which creates this echo chamber that's really hard to escape.
Yeah, it's like you're stuck in this feedback loop, being bombarded by the same perspectives over and over.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial to like break out of those echo chambers, seek out diverse perspectives, and be willing to, challenge your own assumptions.
Okay, so we're talking about like being more proactive, more intentional about, the information we let into our minds.
Right.
But what about like taking action? It's one thing to be, aware and informed,
Mm-hmm.
but how do we actually, translate that knowledge into something tangible, something that makes a difference?
That's the key question, isn't it? It's not enough to simply understand the problem. We need to act on that understanding.
Right.
And there are many ways to do that.
Okay, so like what are some action steps? Like what can we actually do to reclaim our sovereignty, not just in our minds, but in the real world?
Well, one really powerful way is to support those organizations and initiatives that are working to ensure that AI is being developed and used ethically. There are groups that are advocating for transparency in algorithms, for data privacy rights, for using AI to address social challenges, not just for profit.
So like putting our support behind the people and projects that are trying to steer AI in a more positive direction.
Exactly, exactly. It's about amplifying the voices of those who are working towards a more equitable and humane future, with AI. You mentioned in your notes, like an interest in data sovereignty, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are organizations out there that are fighting for, stricter regulations on data collection, data usage. They're pushing for greater individual control over our personal information.
Right. Yeah, supporting those groups makes a lot of sense. But what about something more like hands-on?
Yeah.
Can we as individuals, like, can we use AI to enhance our own decision making and maybe even like reclaim some of that sovereignty we've been talking about?
That's a great question, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Think about it this way. AI can be a really powerful tool for like information gathering and analysis. You can use AI-powered search engines, research assistants, even fact-checking tools to help you cut through all that noise and get to the heart of the matter.
So instead of just being like passively bombarded with information, we can use AI to like actively seek out what we need and make more informed decisions.
Precisely, yeah. It's about flipping the script, taking control of the technology instead of letting it control you. There are even AI tools that are specifically designed to like enhance your privacy and your security,
Hmm.
helping you protect your data and control your online presence.
That's really interesting. So we're not just talking about being aware of AI's influence, but also learning how to leverage it, like to empower ourselves.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that AI isn't inherently good or bad. It's a tool.
Yeah.
And like any tool, its impact really depends on how it's used.
That makes sense. So far, we've talked about it, like cultivating skepticism, being mindful of our information diet, supporting ethical initiatives, and even, using AI tools to empower ourselves. It's kind of a multifaceted approach, isn't it?
It is, it is. And I think that's important to emphasize. There's no like single silver bullet solution to the challenges of AI, right?
Right.
It's really about developing like this holistic set of skills and attitudes and actions that help us kind of navigate this complex landscape with greater awareness and intention.
It sounds like a journey,
Yeah.
like a process of continuous learning and adaptation as AI continues to evolve.
It is, yeah. It's not about, achieving some perfect state of sovereignty, but about constantly engaging with these questions, refining our understanding, and adjusting our approach as needed.
Yeah, that actually makes me feel a bit better. It can feel like kind of overwhelming to think of this as like, a one-time fix.
Right.
But framing it as an ongoing journey feels more manageable, more realistic.
I agree. And I think that sense of agency, of being on a journey, that in itself is empowering.
Yeah.
It reminds us that we have choices, that we're not simply pawns in some technological game.
Welcome back.
Yeah.
I feel like we've covered so much already. We went from NVIDIA, Tesla, and all the potential for AI to reshape our world. But that whole idea of individual sovereignty just keeps coming up.
Yeah, it really is the underlying question, isn't it? How do we keep that sense of agency, that ability to make choices that matter, especially in a world where algorithms are having more and more influence?
Right. Last time we were talking about those potential dangers like the AI surveillance, even like autonomous weapons. It's pretty heavy stuff.
It is, yeah.
But you also mentioned that there are folks out there who are like actually, reclaiming their sovereignty,
Yeah.
finding ways to like push back against those trends and shape AI in a direction that's, more human-centered. I'm really curious to hear about like what are some of those examples?
Well, let's start with something, pretty close to home, like the data that you share online. You mentioned those concerns about data privacy and control.
Oh,
And, rightfully so. You're probably familiar with those data brokers, the companies that are collecting and selling your personal information, without really getting your okay.
oh yeah, those guys. It's kind of creepy how much they know about us.
It is. But the good news is there's a growing movement of, individuals, organizations, they're pushing back.
Really?
Yeah, they're developing tools that allow you to, like, opt out of that data collection,
Huh.
to encrypt your online activity, even demand that those brokers delete your data.
Wait, so we can actually like take back control of our, what do they call it, digital footprint?
You absolutely can. And it's not just like, the super tech savvy people doing this.
Okay.
There are like really user-friendly apps and browser extensions that make it easy for anybody to take those steps. It's all about reclaiming that right to privacy.
Mhm.
In a world where data is often treated as just another commodity.
Okay, that's pretty empowering. So we've got people pushing back on the data front.
Yeah.
What about like are there other examples of this whole like reclaiming sovereignty thing in action?
Yeah, there's another really fascinating development that's happening in the realm of like news and information. You mentioned feeling overwhelmed by just the sheer volume of information out there and how hard it is to know what's true and what's not.
Oh yeah. Yeah, especially with like all the AI generated content and those deep fakes and all the fake news.
Right?
It feels like we're constantly being bombarded, with all this
Wow.
conflicting information. And it's exhausting trying to figure out what to believe.
It is. It's overwhelming. But here's the interesting part. There are actually journalists and researchers who are using AI itself to fight back against that misinformation.
Really? So it's not all doom and gloom.
Not at all. They're developing these algorithms that can like detect deep fakes,
Hmm.
identify fake news sites, even trace where that viral content came from.
Oh, wow.
It's like, a digital detective, like
Yeah,
using AI to uncover the truth.
that's amazing. So it's like AI is being used to spread disinformation, but it's also being used to kind of combat it.
Exactly. It's a high stakes game for sure, but it shows, that AI can be used for good or for bad.
Right.
It really reinforces that idea that, we get to decide how we use it
Hmm.
and we can support those who are using it to promote the truth.
I'm starting to see how this all like connects back to that individual sovereignty idea. It's not just about being aware of the dangers. It's also about like actively looking for solutions,
Mhm.
supporting the people and projects that are, trying to build a better future.
Yeah, you're getting it. It's recognizing that we have agency even in the face of these like massive technologies. We can choose to be passive or we can choose to be active participants in, shaping the future.
That's pretty inspiring. Okay, so you've got people, pushing back on the data front, fighting misinformation. Are there examples of this like happening in the real world too, not just, online?
Absolutely. One trend I find fascinating is what they call intentional communities. These are groups of people who are choosing to live in a way that, minimizes their reliance on technology,
Okay.
maximizes their connection to nature, community, their own values.
So like a modern day back to the land kind of movement, but with this focus on like intentional living.
Exactly. Yeah, they're creating like alternative models for how to live.
Yeah.
In this world that's increasingly dominated by technology, they're showing that hey, there are other ways to be. Other ways to define, what success is, what well-being is, and it's a powerful statement about sovereignty showing that it's not just about like controlling technology, but it's also about cultivating, that inner resilience, connecting to what really matters.
I love that. It's like it reminds me that, true sovereignty, it isn't just about like resisting these external forces, but it's also about like nurturing our own inner landscape,
Yeah.
our sense of self, our connection to, something bigger.
You hit the nail on the head. Technology is a powerful tool, but it can't replace wisdom, compassion, or sense of purpose. Those things, come from within, and they're essential for helping us guide this future where AI enhances our lives rather than taking away from them.
Okay, so we've got the data privacy folks, we've got the AI truth detectives, we've got the intentional communities. It's pretty amazing to see how people are already like pushing back and creating those alternatives.
It is. It's inspiring, isn't it? And it really all comes back to this idea that we have choices, that we're not just passive bystanders in this whole, technological revolution. We can engage, we can learn, we can act, and shape the future in a way that reflects our values.
It's like we're being called to step into like this whole new level of awareness and responsibility, not just for ourselves, but for the future of humanity.
Exactly. And it's not about having all the answers, it's about embracing the unknown, with courage, with curiosity, and that commitment to creating a world where AI serves the greater good.
This has been such a great conversation. I
Yeah.
feel like I have this whole new perspective on AI,
Good, I'm glad.
not just as like a technology, but as a force that's shaping like what it means to be human.
And that's the most important takeaway. AI is really a mirror reflecting back to our brilliance and our flaws. And by engaging with it consciously, with intention, with wisdom, we can use it as this tool for growth, for transformation,
Yeah.
for creating that future that aligns with, our highest aspirations.
Well said. Thank you so much for walking me through all of this. It's been really eye-opening.
It's been my pleasure. And remember, the journey doesn't end here. Keep exploring, keep asking those questions, keep evolving. The future is ours to create.
I love that. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.